Welcome to a journey through one of the most influential philosophical works of the 20th century, Ludwig Wittgenstein's Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. This groundbreaking book, first published in 1922, explores the relationship between language, thought, and reality. Today we'll unravel its core ideas, guided by Bertrand Russell's insightful introduction and Wittgenstein's own words. Whether you're new to philosophy or a seasoned thinker, this exploration promises to challenge and inspire your understanding of logic, meaning, and the limits of what can be said. Tractatus was published as part of the International Library of Psychology, Philosophy and Scientific Method, series curated by C.K. Ogden. This collection brought together leading thinkers like Bertrand Russell, G.E. Moore, and C.G. Jung, aiming to bridge the gap between philosophy and science. Wittgenstein's work stood out for its radical approach to philosophical problems, emphasizing the importance of language and logic. The context of its publication highlights the intellectual climate of early 20th century Europe, where questions about meaning, science, and the mind were at the forefront. Ludwig Wittgenstein, an Austrian philosopher, wrote the Tractatus during and after World War I. Bertrand Russell, his mentor and friend, provided the introduction, recognizing the work's depth and originality. Russell's introduction frames the Tractatus as a pivotal event in philosophy, addressing the nature of symbolism and the logical structure of language. Their collaboration reflects a dynamic exchange of ideas, with Wittgenstein pushing the boundaries of logic and Russell helping to bring his thoughts to a wider audience. At the heart of the Tractatus lies the problem of language. How do words relate to the world? Wittgenstein distinguishes between psychological, epistemological, and logical aspects of language. He argues that the main philosophical confusion arises from misunderstanding the logic of our language. Tractatus seeks to clarify the conditions for a logically perfect language, one where every symbol has a unique, definite meaning, and nonsense is avoided by strict rules of syntax. Wittgenstein begins by analyzing the logical structure of propositions, the statements we use to describe the world. He claims that for a sentence to assert a fact, there must be a structural similarity between the sentence and the fact itself. This idea, known as the picture theory of language, suggests that language mirrors reality. The structure shared by both allows language to represent facts, making communication and understanding possible. Wittgenstein's ideal language: every simple object has a unique name, and complex facts are built from these simples. A name is a simple symbol, it cannot be broken down further. Complexes, on the other hand, are combinations of simples. This distinction is crucial. Only by understanding the basic building blocks of language can we hope to clarify meaning and avoid philosophical confusion. Wittgenstein asserts that the world is made up of facts, not things. Facts are what make propositions true or false. Some facts are atomic, they cannot be broken down into simpler facts. Atomic facts consist of simple objects in specific relations. Understanding these atomic facts is key to grasping the logical structure of reality, as all complex facts are built from them. Not all propositions are atomic. Molecular propositions are built from atomic ones using logical operations like and, or, and not. Wittgenstein explores how these complex statements can be constructed from simpler ones, emphasizing the role of truth functions. This approach allows us to see how the entire web of language and logic is interconnected, with complex meanings arising from simple components. Truth function is a proposition whose truth depends only on the truth of its components. Wittgenstein, building on Scheffer's work, shows that all logical operations can be reduced to combinations of not and or. This insight simplifies the theory of inference and clarifies the nature of logical deduction. By understanding truth functions, we gain a powerful tool for analyzing the structure of language and reasoning. Wittgenstein introduces a symbolic notation to describe how all propositions can be generated from atomic ones. This general form captures the essence of logical construction, showing that every meaningful statement is ultimately a truth function of atomic propositions. The elegance of this system lies in its ability to define the boundaries of sense and nonsense within language. One striking implication of Wittgenstein's logic is the rejection of causality as a logical necessity. In his system, no atomic proposition implies another, and nothing can be deduced from a single atomic fact. This challenges traditional notions of cause and effect, suggesting that what we call causality is not a logical feature of the world, but a superstition rooted in our habits of thought. Wittgenstein critically examines the concept of identity. He argues that identity is not a logically necessary principle. Two things could, in theory, share all properties and still be distinct. As a result, he treats object as a pseudo-concept and banishes identity from his logical system. This radical move reshapes how we think about the totality of things and the limits of what can be meaningfully said. Central thesis of the Tractatus is that we cannot say anything about the world as a whole, only about bounded portions of it. Wittgenstein uses the analogy of the field of vision. Just as we cannot see beyond the edge of our sight, we cannot speak meaningfully about what lies beyond the limits of language. This insight leads to a profound rethinking of the scope and purpose of philosophy. Wittgenstein's discussion of solipsism, the idea that only one's own mind is certain to exist, takes a unique turn. He suggests that the boundaries of language are also the boundaries of one's world. The metaphysical subject or self does not belong to the world but is its boundary. This view blurs the line between logic, language, and personal experience, offering a new perspective on subjectivity. Wittgenstein addresses the logical form of belief and related mental phenomena known as propositional attitudes. He argues that statements like "a believes P" are not simple relations between a person and a proposition, but rather involve a coordination of facts. This analysis challenges earlier philosophical theories and emphasizes the complexity of meaning in language. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Tractatus is Wittgenstein's treatment of the mystical. He claims that the most important things, like the structure of language itself, cannot be said, only shown. This includes logic, philosophy, and even ethics. The mystical for Wittgenstein is what lies beyond the limits of language, forever inexpressible but deeply significant. Wittgenstein explores the problem of generality, how we talk about all things of a certain kind. He denies that we can meaningfully speak of the totality of all things, as this would require stepping outside the world. Instead, we can only discuss bounded sets defined by specific properties. This limitation is central to his view of logic and language. Russell, in his introduction, raises the possibility of a hierarchy of languages, each with its own structure, capable of describing the one below it. Wittgenstein's theory, however, insists that the totality of such languages cannot be meaningfully discussed. This debate highlights the ongoing tension between the expressible and the inexpressible in philosophy. In his preface, Wittgenstein states that the Tractatus is not a textbook, but a work intended for those who have already grappled with similar thoughts. He hopes the book will bring pleasure to at least one reader who understands it. The main message, what can be said at all can be said clearly, what cannot be said must be passed over in silence. Wittgenstein's goal is to draw a limit not to thinking itself but to the expression of thoughts. He argues that the boundary of what can be thought is also the boundary of what can be expressed in language. Anything beyond this limit is simply nonsense, lying outside the realm of meaningful discourse. Wittgenstein acknowledges his intellectual debt to Gottlob Frege and Bertrand Russell. Their pioneering work in logic and philosophy provided the foundation for his own ideas. The Tractatus builds on their insights while also challenging and extending them, marking a turning point in the history of analytic philosophy. According to Wittgenstein, the value of the Tractatus lies in two things: the clarity with which thoughts are expressed, and the demonstration that solving philosophical problems often reveals how little is accomplished by their solution. He believes the problems addressed are essentially resolved, but recognizes the limitations of his own efforts. Wittgenstein famously begins, "The world is everything that is the case." He distinguishes between facts and things, emphasizing that the world is the totality of facts, not objects. This perspective shifts the focus from what exists to the relationships and structures that make up reality. Objects, or simples, are the building blocks of atomic facts. Each object can only be understood in terms of its possible relations with other objects. The configuration of objects forms the structure of reality, and understanding this structure is essential for meaningful language. Wittgenstein introduces the concept of substance as what exists independently of what is the case. Substance is both form and content, providing the fixed framework within which facts occur. Space, time, and color are examples of forms that objects can take, but the substance itself is colorless and formless. The central idea in the Tractatus is that we make pictures of facts. A picture is a model of reality with its elements corresponding to objects in the world. The structure of the picture mirrors the structure of what it represents, allowing us to understand and communicate about reality. For a picture to represent reality, it must share a form with what it depicts. This form of representation is what makes language meaningful. Wittgenstein argues that the logical form cannot itself be represented in language, it can only be shown, not said. This distinction is crucial for understanding the limits of expression. Picture agrees with reality if it is true and disagrees if it is false. The sense of a proposition is determined by its agreement or disagreement with the facts. To determine truth, we must compare the proposition with reality. Truth is not inherent in the proposition itself. Wittgenstein claims that the logical picture of facts is thought itself. Thoughts contain the possibility of the states of affairs they represent. What is thinkable is possible, and the limits of thought are the limits of what can be represented in language. Propositions are expressed through signs, words, or symbols that stand for objects and relations. The arrangement of these signs mirrors the arrangement of objects in reality. Understanding a proposition means understanding the possible state of affairs it represents. Names are the simplest elements of language, each corresponding to a single object. The meaning of a name is the object it stands for. Only in the context of a proposition does a name have meaning, highlighting the importance of structure in language. Complexes are combinations of simple objects. Any statement about a complex can be analyzed into statements about its parts. Wittgenstein insists that there is only one complete analysis of a proposition, ensuring clarity and precision in meaning. By turning parts of a proposition into variables, we can generate classes of related propositions. This approach reveals the logical forms underlying language and allows us to describe the structure of meaning in a systematic way. Wittgenstein emphasizes the importance of clear symbolism in avoiding philosophical confusion. Different symbols can share the same sign but signify in different ways. Logical grammar or syntax ensures that symbols are used consistently and meaningfully. The rules of logical syntax must be self-evident, arising from the way each sign signifies. In logical analysis, the meaning of a sign should never play a role, only its use within the system matters. This principle underpins Wittgenstein's critique of earlier logical theories. Each proposition determines a place in logical space, a unique position defined by its components. The existence of this logical place is guaranteed by the existence of the proposition's parts. This spatial metaphor helps visualize the structure of meaning in language. The totality of propositions constitutes language. Wittgenstein notes that humans can construct languages capable of expressing any sense, even without understanding the meaning of each word. Everyday language is complex and disguises the underlying logic of thought. Wittgenstein famously declares that all philosophy is a critique of language. Most philosophical problems arise from misunderstandings about language's logic. By clarifying language, philosophy dissolves confusion and reveals that many deep problems are not problems at all. Propositions are models of reality constructed with a logical scaffolding. Understanding a proposition means knowing what is the case if it is true. The structure of the proposition reveals the logical features of reality, allowing us to draw conclusions even from false statements. Translating between languages involves translating the constituent parts of propositions, not entire sentences. The meanings of simple signs must be explained, but through propositions we communicate and clarify meaning. This process underscores the importance of structure in language. Wittgenstein discusses the mathematical multiplicity of propositions, noting that their structure must match the structure of the facts they represent. This requirement ensures that language can accurately model reality and that logical analysis remains precise and meaningful. Proposition is true if it corresponds to reality and false if it does not. The concept of truth is illustrated by the analogy of a black spot on white paper. Truth and falsity depend on the agreement between the proposition and the facts, not on any inherent property of the proposition itself. Assertion and denial do not give a proposition its sense, they merely affirm or negate what is already meaningful. The logical place determined by a proposition is independent of whether it is asserted or denied. This distinction clarifies the role of negation in logic. Philosophy, for Wittgenstein, is not a natural science. Its purpose is to clarify thoughts and delimit the boundaries of what can be thought and said. By making the speakable clear, philosophy points to the unspeakable, the realm of the mystical and inexpressible. Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus remains a landmark in philosophy, challenging us to reconsider the limits of language, logic, and meaning. Wittgenstein's insights continue to influence thinkers across disciplines, reminding us that clarity in language is the key to clarity in thought. As we reflect on his work, we are left with a profound appreciation for the power and the limits of what can be said.